The impact of missing flight MH370 on tourism in Malaysia loomed larger on Wednesday. Several Chinese agencies report bookings between China and Malaysia have fallen sharply. China Youth Travel Service has announced it would suspend business with Malaysian Airlines. The travel company will provide full refunds or rebook their passengers on another airline. The company issued a statement saying that the decision was made out of safety concerns. China currently accounts for 12% of foreign visitors to the country of Malaysia. Now, it is impossible to put a price tag on the lives lost in any tragedy, but history says that the families will likely seek compensation. We take a look back at past accidents to see how much was paid in damages. In 2009, Air France Flight 447 crashed into the Atlantic, killing all 228 on board. The next of kin of each victim received $177,000 from the airline. Two Libyan officials paid $2.7 billion to the families in the 1988 Lockerbie bombings. 270 people were killed on board after a bomb exploded on Pan Am Flight 103. And in 1996, TWA Flight 800 exploded shortly after takeoff in New York. 230 people died. Families were allowed to seek $75,000 under the agreement in 1996. Since then, the amount has been increased to a mandatory $176,000 per victim. That is a fixed sum agreed to for international airlines. Now, for more on this, we can cross over to Floyd Wisner, Aviation Attorney with the Wisner Law Firm. He joins us from Boynton Beach, Florida. Welcome to Biz Asia America. You may have heard earlier we talked a lot about the case itself. The lawyers are arguing that they don't need further evidence as to what exactly happened on the plane, that they can prove that it was the fault perhaps of Boeing. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I completely do not agree. I've been doing this type of work for over 2 decades, and I can tell you that this action filed in Chicago is, in my opinion, a complete sham. It's embarrassing to me as an aviation lawyer, and it is nothing more, in my opinion, than a marketing ploy. And it's shameful because it gives families hopes that somehow this petition for discovery filed in Illinois is going to gather evidence for the families. It's not. That petition will shortly be dismissed, either on the court's own motion, on Boeing's motion, or this plaintiff's law firm may quietly, voluntarily dismiss it on its own after it's garnered the publicity generated by the filing.
I've read bits and pieces of the details of the lawsuit, and it doesn't specify specific damages. And I'm just wondering, what's the purpose of the lawsuit? Is it because possibly they want a bigger investigation or a private investigation, perhaps?
No. First of all, it's not a lawsuit. It's called a petition for discovery. It's a unique Illinois procedure. It's designed and intended to allow an injured party who does not know the identity of the person who has caused them injury to find out that identity. That's its only purpose. It can never be used for the purpose here where we know the identity of the manufacturer, we know the identity of the airline, and they are using it to try to seek evidence from them. That's not the proper purpose. It's never going to get them anywhere on that. It's just its purpose really, I'm confident, in my opinion, it's just a marketing ploy to sign up clients. That's all it is.
I was talking to another attorney who specializes in class action, and there's a little thing called standing, essentially whether or not the plaintiffs have the right to sue in a particular jurisdiction. The airline is not a U.S. airline. Many of the plaintiffs are not U.S. citizens. Do they have a case possibly still, even with the fact that majority of the plaintiffs and the other parties involved are not based in the U.S.?
Well, no, and here's a very good point. The person on whose behalf that this firm has brought this lawsuit is the uncle of a passenger, not the father as initially reported. He's the uncle, and he doesn't even have standing to bring any kind of lawsuit on behalf of this family. That's point number one. Secondly, under the Montreal Convention dictates the jurisdiction in which a suit may be brought. And unless you're an American, you can't bring a suit against Malaysia Air in the United States. Boeing you can, but you better be able to prove it. And that's where the lack of record comes in.
Now, for the record, I did put in a phone call to the law firm that is filed this action. They did not return my call. They did say they didn't have no comment at that point. And I also talked with Boeing as well. They did not return my message. So they're remaining relatively mum about this. But if you were advising the families in this particular disaster right now, there isn't a black box. They haven't found the debris yet. What would you be advising the families to do?
Well, I have been talking to some families so far and advising them as to their possible rights. And I would tell them that as against Malaysia Air, no matter if wreckage is found, no matter if bodies are found, and no matter really as to the ultimate cause, whether it's hijacking, sabotage, or mechanical failure, Malaysia Air is going to be responsible. And it's going to be responsible not just for the $176,000 in initial damages, but for additional damages beyond that, unless the airline can prove that it took all reasonable measures necessary to avoid this loss or that a third party was solely responsible for the loss. Malaysia Air will not be able to prove that, so the damages against Malaysia Air are going to be unlimited. They're not capped. And there may be an additional claim against Boeing or possibly an engine component manufacturer, another component manufacturer, but that remains to be seen. It depends upon what is determined by the investigation, recovery of wreckage, and recovery of the back boxes.
Very briefly, I want to ask you a question. You brought this up in what you just said was, do you believe that Malaysian Airlines has done the right thing? Have they done anything, in your view, that's been wrong?
No, as far as are you talking about handling responding to the passengers? I think they've been terrible. They've mishandled this from the outset. They should have had one person or at least one group of person acting as a liaison with the families on a several times daily basis, talking to the families, telling them what's true, what cannot be true, dealing with these rumors before they come out, telling the families something before they hear from it in the media. And then to tell the families about the ultimate conclusion that the plane has been lost by text message, unbelievably callous. Just mishandled, terrible, terrible performance by Malaysia Air.
Well, this story is going to continue for some time, but I want to thank you, Floyd Wisner, Aviation Attorney with the Wisner Law Firm, joining us from Florida.